An alleged Chinese spy with links to Prince Andrew has now been named after a London court lifted a suppression order on his identity. 50-year-old businessman Yang Tengbo had forged a close relationship with the Duke of York and obscured his links with the Chinese Communist Party. He denies he's a spy, but British authorities are working to determine what he learnt and from who. Well, let's get more on this. Professor Rana Mitter from the Harvard Kennedy School is an expert on contemporary China, and he joins us now. Professor Mitter, thank you for your time. And before we get into the significance of Yang Tengbo's identity being revealed, can you bring us up to this current moment? I mean, how close did he get to Prince Andrew, and when and how did authorities act?
Well, Gemma, I only know what we have from the news here in the UK, where I'm currently based at the moment. And I'd say that it seems that he managed to get into the private circles around Prince Andrew very, very closely. The stories that have been put forward suggest that Prince Andrew was looking for people who perhaps had, connections to business, perhaps areas of finance, something along those lines. It appears that Mr. Yang, we now know his name, Yang Tengbo, is someone who was able to move in those kinds of business and society circles. And over a period of quite some time, it seems, to get quite close to Prince Andrew.
So for you, how surprising a case is this?
I think the surprise element is that it's a member of the royal family. I mean, again, of course, same royal family that you have over there in Australia. But for us, this is something that's slightly eyebrow raising. I think it would be unusual to think of someone that high up in the royal family, even though Prince Andrew is no longer a working royal, to be that close. In terms of the wider story, well, not really that surprising, because we've known for a long time that a particular organization of the Chinese Communist Party called the UFWD, the United Front Work Department, has been operating to basically get close to elites in Western countries and foreign countries in general outside China. It's actually been running for about a century now. It was founded in the 1930s, 1940s, back in the days of Chairman Mao and the rise of the Communist Party in China. Obviously, the situation is very different now with cybersecurity, with modern techniques of surveillance and interference. But at the same time, the organization itself hasn't really changed its purpose, which is to try and get elites in other countries to give a good impression of the Communist Party of China and the PRC, the People's Republic, the country that it runs.
So Yang Tengbo has now been named, as we said. How significant is that, and what's the reasoning behind it?
Well, actually, Gemma, the reporting that's coming out here from the BBC in London suggests it's slightly the other way around. It suggests that Mr. Yang actually asked to be named. I think that it seems that the tribunal authorities here wanted to put his name out there, and then he was given anonymity. He was known as H6 for a while. And then it appears possibly, we're not yet sure, on the advice of one of his own lawyers, he's decided to let his identity become public. The case that he seems to be making is that he's done nothing illegal. He says he's done nothing wrong at all. And actually, he has no reason that people shouldn't know his name. I have to say that, at least as far as I'm concerned, it's not a name that I've ever heard. And I wouldn't have thought that it would be one that's very well known to the British public. So I'm not quite sure how much we get from it being revealed. But here in the UK now, it's certainly out in the open.
You mentioned this move of getting close to elites. What did or could have Mr. Yang gained from his relationship with Prince Andrew?
It's still not very clear what the purpose is in terms of particular policy outcomes or goals. But we have to remember what the general purpose is of getting close to these elites. It's sometimes called elite capture. The idea is not, I think, necessarily to get any particular goal. I think they know, foreign countries pretty well, including the UK. They know that Prince Andrew himself is unlikely to be able to get anything done on his own. He's not an MP, he's not elected, he doesn't have that kind of power. What it does is give a certain sort of respectability. If you are hanging out with the royal family, the general impression will be, well, look, you're well connected in British society, you know what's going on, you know the right kind of people. And that could be an entree to other circles, such as business or media or other aspects of the public sphere that otherwise might not be open to a business person from abroad. So I'd say trying to get long-term influence rather than any one particular specific goal is probably what's intended. But we don't really know, because he has made no statement actually saying what that purpose was. This
has got to be pretty devastating for King Charles, but Prince Andrew's office says that he has ceased all contact with Mr. Yang. He says nothing sensitive was discussed. The intelligence community would perhaps have a different opinion on that, though, as to what would be sensitive.
I think that's probably right, Gemma, in the sense that it may well be the case that no specific issue is discussed. I don't know that Prince Andrew would necessarily have access to major state secrets. And it's certainly not, from the sound of it, espionage in the classic sense of hidden secrets being revealed. I think it really is more this question of getting an entry point into British society. I think it's still fair to say that, although, society has moved on a lot in the last few years, if you're close to a senior member of the royal family, it gives you a certain access, a certain privilege. And I suspect that this is one of the things that, no doubt, the United Front Work Department and perhaps Mr. Young, if, he says he's not involved, but if there were any connection with that organisation, that might be the purpose that they were trying to put forward.
Professor Rana Mitter from the Harvard Kennedy School, thank you for speaking with us.